Welcome back to Ezicho Africa, the channel where we unpack Africa's rise, its hidden opportunities, and the powerful partnerships shaping its future. Today, we bring you a story that could transform Africa's food economy forever. India is stepping in to help Ethiopia become the biggest rice producer on the continent. Think about this for a second. Africa, with its fertile lands and rivers, still spends over $6 billion every year importing rice from Asia. Ethiopia alone, despite its enormous agricultural potential, has been a heavy rice importer. Yet Ethiopia has more than 1.5 million hectares of land perfectly suited for rice farming, much of it still untouched. Now, India, the world's largest rice exporter, is bringing in technology, investment, and expertise to change that reality. The result? Ethiopia could transform from a rice-importing nation into a rice-exporting powerhouse. This isn't just about food. It's about geopolitics, economics, and Africa's journey towards self-sufficiency. So why is India investing in Ethiopia's rice dream? What does Ethiopia stand to gain? And what does this mean for Africa's position in the global rice market? Stay with us, because in this video we'll break it all down in detail. We'll explore Ethiopia's rice journey, India's global dominance, the partnership between the two nations, and how this could ripple across the African continent. If you're ready to see how Ethiopia could become Africa's rice superpower with India's backing, then make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Ezicho Africa, and let's dive straight in. Rice is no longer just an Asian story. It has become a Pan-African staple. 50 years ago, rice consumption in Africa was modest, mostly confined to coastal West Africa. But with urbanization, rising incomes, and changing diets, rice has moved to the center of African kitchens. In cities from Lagos to Nairobi, Addis Ababa to Dakar, rice is now the food of choice for millions. Why? Because rice is quick to cook, versatile, and fits easily into busy urban lifestyles. Street vendors sell rice dishes daily, families serve rice during celebrations, and restaurants place it on every menu. The numbers prove this shift. In 1990, Africa consumed around 9 million tons of rice annually. By 2023, that figure had jumped to nearly 40 million tons. By 2035, Africa's rice demand could cross 50 million tons per year. The problem is production has not kept pace with consumption. Africa produces less than two-thirds of what it eats. Countries like Nigeria, Senegal, and Ethiopia import shiploads of rice every year, mostly from India, Thailand, and Vietnam. This import dependence drains billions in foreign exchange. Nigeria alone spends over $2 billion annually on rice imports. Ethiopia has also spent hundreds of millions on rice purchases abroad, money that could have been invested in local agriculture. And here lies the opportunity. Africa has the land, water, and labor to grow more than enough rice for itself. But what it often lacks is the technology, improved seeds, and investment to unlock that potential. Enter India. By sharing its decades of rice expertise, India can help Ethiopia fill this gap. And in the process, Ethiopia could become not just self-sufficient, but a continental leader. Ethiopia's agricultural history is dominated by coffee, teff, sorghum, and maize. Rice is relatively new to the scene. It was first introduced in the 1970s by researchers and aid organizations who saw Ethiopia's fertile lowlands as ideal for cultivation. In the early years, rice remained a niche crop. Farmers experimented, but it never became mainstream. Things began to change in the 2000s, when Ethiopia identified rice as a millennium crop, a food that could transform both nutrition and income. The Ethiopian government later developed the National Rice Strategy Plan, 2020 to 2030. Its goals were ambitious: achieve rice self-sufficiency by 2027, expand cultivated area from under 100,000 hectares to 1.5 million hectares, raise yields from about 3 tons per hectare to over 5 tons per hectare, create jobs and reduce poverty by linking small farmers to rice value chains. So where does Ethiopia stand now? In 2022, Ethiopia produced about 208,000 tons of rice. Land under cultivation was roughly 60,000 hectares. Average yield was around 3.5 tons per hectare, higher than some African peers, but still below Asia's best. The Amhara, Oromia, Benishangul Gumuz, and Gambela regions are Ethiopia's rice hotspots. Gambela, in particular, is often compared to Southeast Asia's rice plains, flat, fertile, and well-watered. But Ethiopia's biggest challenge is infrastructure. Many rice fields are far from processing mills. Farmers lack access to modern seeds, irrigation, and mechanization. Without these, scaling up production to millions of tons is difficult. That's why partnerships are crucial. Ethiopia knows it cannot achieve this transformation alone. It needs partners who bring technology, finance, and expertise. And India, with its global rice leadership, has emerged as one of the most important. India is not just a rice producer. It is the king of global rice trade. In 2023, India exported more than 22 million tons of rice, almost half the world's traded rice. From basmati to parboiled rice, Indian shipments feed countries across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. So how did India achieve this dominance? Decades of green revolution policies introduced high-yield rice varieties. Heavy investment in irrigation networks and mechanization boosted output. Agricultural research institutions like the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, developed climate-resilient rice suited to different regions. Private players built large milling and packaging industries to process rice for both local and international markets. India's rice success is not just about farming. It's about the entire value chain, from seed to export terminal. For Ethiopia, India's model is inspirational. It shows how a developing country can leap from food shortages to becoming a global supplier. And India sees opportunity too. By helping Ethiopia, India expands its influence in Africa, creates new markets for its farm technology, and strengthens political ties. So what exactly is India doing to help Ethiopia? Technology transfer. India is providing Ethiopia with high-yield rice varieties, adapted to different climates. Indian agronomists are sharing irrigation techniques and soil management practices to maximize output. Investment. Indian companies have started investing in commercial rice farms in Ethiopia. They bring tractors, milling machines, and modern processing plants, helping Ethiopia build a complete value chain. Capacity building. Ethiopia has sent students to Indian agricultural universities. Farmers are being trained in improved cultivation methods. Indian experts are on the ground in Ethiopia, guiding projects. Infrastructure support. India has extended credit lines for agricultural development. Part of this is going into building storage facilities, irrigation canals, and road links between rice farms and markets. This partnership is about more than rice. It is about creating a model of South-South cooperation, where two developing nations lift each other up. Ethiopia gains knowledge and investment. India gains goodwill, markets, and strategic influence. Can Ethiopia really surpass Nigeria, Egypt, or Madagascar to become Africa's rice giant? The potential is massive. Land. 1.5 million hectares of rice-suitable land, most of it still underused. Water. Rivers like the Nile and Barrow provide irrigation potential. Demand. Ethiopia's urban population is growing rapidly, creating a guaranteed market. Exports. With Djibouti's port, Ethiopia could supply rice to East Africa and the Middle East. But challenges remain. Ethiopia must fix its infrastructure bottlenecks, poor rural roads, and limited processing capacity. Farmers need affordable credit and modern machinery. Climate risks also threaten yields. Still, with India's backing, Ethiopia could see its production rise from 200,000 tons today to several million tons within 2 decades. That would place Ethiopia in Africa's top 3 producers, if not the very top. Ethiopia's rise as a rice power would ripple far beyond its borders. Food security. Africa spends billions importing rice. If Ethiopia becomes a net exporter, it reduces this burden. Job creation. Large-scale rice farming creates employment, from planting to milling to transport. Regional trade. Ethiopia could export to Kenya, Sudan, Somalia, and other neighbors. Geopolitics. India's role deepens African ties, balancing China's heavy presence in infrastructure. For Africa, Ethiopia's success would prove that the continent can feed itself. It would show that dependence on Asia is not inevitable. And it would mark a turning point where Africa becomes a player in the global rice market, not just a buyer. So, what needs to happen next? Ethiopia's government must continue prioritizing rice. Policies must stay consistent. Infrastructure investments, roads, storage, milling, are urgent. farmers need access to modern seed varieties and irrigation systems. Partnerships with India and others must expand, not just in farming, but in processing and marketing. If these steps are taken, Ethiopia could transform within the next 10 to 15 years. From being an importer of rice, it could become Africa's rice powerhouse, inspiring other countries to follow. So there you have it. Ethiopia, a country long associated with coffee and teff, is now on the path to becoming Africa's biggest rice producer, thanks to fertile land, rising demand, and the powerful support of India. This partnership is about much more than agriculture. It's about food security, economic growth, and Africa's future on the global stage. India brings expertise. Ethiopia brings potential. Together, they could reshape Africa's food system. And as always, here on Ezicho Africa, we will continue to bring you these transformative stories of Africa's rise. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more insights on Africa's journey to self-reliance and prosperity. Because one thing is clear, the age of Africa feeding itself and the world has begun.